Hello, 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 and welcome to Two Black Church Boys Churched and Change. My name is Calvin Bell III, and I'm here with my co-host, William Lee. How are you doing today, William?
I'm great, man. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can't complain.
If you notice, we are in the church basement tonight because we're actually working on Sunday's live stream service. But in addition to that, we just wanted to come to you tonight to talk about the upcoming primary election, which is going to take place on July the 7th. We're going to go through, specific to New Jersey, how to vote in mail, some of the changes that are happening with this primary season due to COVID-19 concerns. And we're just going to talk about the importance in general of voting.
Right. And so as a younger voter, it's important that I'm very excited about it, although it's by mail-in. I think it's something that I'm going to cherish because those that have just turned 18 and this is your first time taking part of the process, stay excited about it. Get involved, make our voices heard, especially during this time where young people are getting out to protest and really allowing their voices to be heard and organizing. So this is something that you should be excited about as this is your first time, no matter the circumstances.
And I just want to say, for those of us who may feel disaffected by politics and politicians, those of us who may have not voted in a long time, we are living in perilous times. And this may truly be, I know people say this as a cliche, but this may actually be one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime. For those of us who value Black lives, for those of us who are sick of health disparities in our community, for those of us who are sick of food deserts in our community, for those of us who are sick of voter suppression, for those of us who are sick of the myriad of social, racial, and political ills, this election season is the first step in electing officials who support our values, who will advocate for our values, and who will fight opposition to make sure that legislation goes through that supports our values. So before we show you what the mail-in ballot looks like, I just want to give you some details about July 7th primary in New Jersey. If you're not in New Jersey, just listen, because this may apply to you all as well. But we encourage you to research your own state-specific primary information. But for New Jersey residents, particularly in Camden County, there will be in-person voting. However, the Camden County is planning on reducing the amount of polling locations by 50%. Each municipality will have a precinct where you can go to vote in person, but there won't be as many precincts as there usually are. Also, they're not allowing any machine voting this year. So it's all provisional ballots, all paper, and it's going to take a longer time now for those paper ballots to be counted than it typically would with the machine voting. So they're offering and they're pushing us to use the mail-in option. And that's what Calvin and I want to show you what the ballot looks like tonight, and just go through how you can mail your ballot in.
Right, so I'm going to share my screen, and we really wanted to go into detail about each part and what to look forward to in part of the process. So I'll start from the very first one, and this is one of the pages that you'll get. So I think there are like 4 pieces within this big white envelope that you'll receive in the mail. And here kind of lays out some of the things that William was saying. So for example, the date of the primary election has been changed to July 7th to take that into account. And that, like William was also saying, that most of the people voting this year, at least in New Jersey, will be going by mail-in ballot to really take into account that we are living in a pandemic with COVID-19 on the rise. So we want to make sure that we're safe, that we're quarantining, but we're also social distancing. And so maybe you're more comfortable voting in person. However, to take into account that you would not be voting by machine, it will be provisional. So make sure that you really take those different factors into account as we go into July in a couple of days. And it's also adaptable to Spanish speakers as well, to also read the same details about the election coming up. So here we have like more of a step-by-step of how to do the process and how to go about it. And so here we'll go about the ballot, this yellow envelope that you have to put the ballot into, as well as the yellow envelope that you have to put into this green envelope. Which sounds like a lengthy process.
Envelopes on envelopes on
Yeah,
envelopes.
yeah, exactly. But it's something that is more so for security reasons because we don't want to have any discrepancies within the process. You want to make sure that your vote is counted no matter what.
Certainly. So what we have here, so the last slide was a bird's eye view of the whole process. Now we're going to go individually with each step here. What we have here is a sample ballot. This is in New Jersey. Well, let me back up. In New Jersey, you have to register or identify as either a Democrat or a Republican to vote. We have here a sample Democratic ballot. It's just easier in New Jersey, given that New Jersey is a majority Democratic state, to find these. If you are a Republican, though, and you're registered as a Republican, the ballot that should have been sent to your home by now is a Republican ballot. So it'll have the red coloring at the top. If you notice, there's 3 columns for candidates, and then there's the 4th column that says write-in. So if you're unsatisfied with the candidates that you have before you, then you can write them in. So we have the president here. We all know that race has been pretty much decided, but they still have Senator Sanders on the ballot. We have Senator Cory Booker is running for re-election against Lawrence Ham. We have for the House Representatives in this area, Donald Norcross. And then we have a host of other candidates who are running. And these may be different based on where you are located. But for the most part, they're in Camden County pretty much going to be the same people.
Right. And so now on to the next process. So here's this big yellow envelope that you'll also receive in this white envelope. And so you need to make sure that that ballot goes into this yellow envelope. It will say your address, your voter ID, as well as when the primary election is, so you don't forget, in the district that you're located in. And then it'll also have your political affiliation, as well as your signature, which is where the X is, the line is. You have to make sure that you sign your name there before you can put it in the green envelope. And then you'll seal that closed. There should be a seal on the end of that.
Yep. And speaking of that green envelope, it looks tan here, but it's actually green. You will put your ballot, your ballot inside the yellow envelope. Then you'll put the yellow envelope in here, making sure that your address is shown in that little window there. And the reason why there's so many different precautions, not only to avoid voter suppression, like Calvin was saying, but just to make sure that there is a security metrics and privacy so that no one knows who you are voting for and no one can publicize your vote.
Right. And so just to end, some very important details that you should take into consideration. If you ever have any questions, most likely that question can be answered with this part of the process. It's very important that you read through each part. And so some specific things such as, can I vote in person? Can I vote at the polls even if I receive a mail-in ballot? A mail-in ballot is just one choice that you can choose. However, you also can go about it in this format of going in person. However, take into account that the process may be a little bit slower in terms of getting your vote out there. You can also drop it off if you are not comfortable mailing it. I know personally, I want to make sure that I drop it off because not only does it feel good as a first-time voter, but also I want to make sure that they receive it in their hands because I don't want any discrepancies, especially being in a state that has maybe had its form of voter suppression that's maybe not as extensive and as large as Georgia or in Atlanta, but has its own fair share of it as well. And one more thing to take into account, Election Day, yes, is July 7th. However, they want to make sure that your ballot is received by July 14th. And so make sure that that is received by 8 p.m., even though Election Day is July 7th.
To caveat that, it has to be postmarked for July 7th.
Right.
So even if it's received, as long as it's received by July 14th, it'll be counted. It just needs to be postmarked for July 7th. So please try with all due diligence to get it in by the July 7th deadline. Also, if you wanted to know the address for the place where Calvin is going to take his ballot to, it's 100 University Court, Blackwood, New Jersey, 08012, which you all may know is the main campus for Camden County College.
Right.
All righty, we're back. So just to conclude, I know for me, voting in this season is essential. It's critical. I'm never a person that pushes voting as the primary way to organize and advocate for change, but it is a way, right? Because we're electing candidates who are going to support our values, who are going to fight for us, who are going to advocate and pursue legislation that is going to make a tangible impact in our lives. We're living in what I like to call a post Shelby County reality. And what that is Shelby County was the Supreme Court decision in 2013 that invalidated Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. And the reason why you see such rampant voter suppression throughout the South is because without that Section 5 pre-clearance requirement, which we'll talk about in another podcast in more detail, states no longer have to report their voting irregularities or their voting changes to the DOJ for pre-clearance. So now states are able to do what they want to do. And perhaps if we had a different president who had nominated different Supreme Court justices, that decision may have gone out a different way. So that's why voting is essential, because our elected officials then choose our judiciary, and then they make these decisions that impact our lives. And now we have hosts of people throughout the country whose votes are being suppressed because of the decisions of our elected officials. So if you ever felt like you needed a reason to vote, please consider that. If there was ever a time to vote, this is the time.
Right.
Regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, we can't tell you how to vote, but we can just tell you to vote. So I'm imploring you, if Black Lives Matter, vote. If you want to march for our lives, vote. If anything at all that we talk about in these podcasts matters to you, please get out there and vote.
Right. And like William was also touching on, it's a state-by-state basis. Legislation is made within the state. So it's important that you have representatives. It's important that you have senators that are representing the issues that you believe in. During this time, we are not only living in a pandemic, but we are also living in a time of heightened racism, where our voices matter as much as they should have mattered before. However, now it's time to really use our voices even more. Get involved in the process. Take pride in your voice. Take pride in your vote, because it truly does matter. And I definitely think that we can move on to another progress, another point in our time if we really utilize our vote, utilize our voices, and make sure that although we are talking about it from the New Jersey perspective, maybe you have already voted, such as Washington, D.C., where my aunt resides, or you live in a state that hasn't voted yet. But really take this into account that you should use your voice, get involved in the process, because it's very important.
It is vital. And so we're just imploring you, get out there and vote. But until next time, we are two Black church boys, and we are out.
Peace. Stay church.